was needed, she would say. That's all. She spent her evenings watching the stars through a simple telescope, not as a soldier but as a woman who loved the quiet dark. Her brother Daniel still lived in New Seattle. Maya was older now, studying quantum engineering at the University of Colorado. She no longer drew warships. Now she sketched orbital habitats, deep space gardens, and gateways to places no one had named yet. One evening she asked her father if humans would ever go back to the stars. Not to join them, Daniel said, but to walk among them as equals. On our terms, she nodded. She understood. The Galactic Concord reformed. It created a new charter, one that recognized non-aligned advanced civilizations as sovereign entities with full rights. It banned unsanctioned scans near neutral systems. It even established a silent protocol, a rule that if a species chose to withdraw, the Concord would not harass, monitor, or pressure them to return. Everyone knew who the rule was really for. Years turned into decades. New generations grew up knowing Earth not as a loud newcomer, but as a quiet legend. Ships passing near Sol would dim their lights for a moment, not in fear, but in respect. Some alien poets wrote verses about the world that walked away and became a mountain. Merchants told stories of human freighters that appeared in storms and vanished with a nod. None of it was true. None of it was false. It was simply how the galaxy made sense of something it could not control. And Earth watched. It listened. It learned. It built. Deep in the Oort cloud, new gates opened. Not for war, not for conquest, for exploration. Human scientists sent probes beyond the galactic rim, not to claim but to understand. They mapped dark matter streams, recorded the songs of dying stars, and left no trace behind. They were no longer seeking approval. They were simply being. One clear night in Colorado, Daniel stood beside his daughter on the same hill where he once pointed out constellations. The sky was full of stars, but one glowed a little brighter, not because it was closer, but because they knew what it meant. "We didn't leave because we were weak," Maya said softly. "No," Daniel replied. "We left because we finally knew our worth." Above them, unseen, a human satellite turned its sensors toward the outer dark. It saw nothing threatening, nothing needing help, just the endless quiet of space waiting, and for the first time in a long time, the galaxy understood. Earth had not abandoned them. It had simply grown beyond the need to explain itself. The Council would never forget. But Earth did not care if they remembered. It had stepped away, and in doing so it had found its place, not at the table but among the stars on its own terms forever. Tazrik's fleet gathered near the ruins of Helios Prime. His ships were scarred but strong, their hulls patched with stolen plating, their crews hungry for more blood. They formed up in a wide wedge, engines glowing hot, ready to punch through the jump point that led straight to Xylos. The Concord's last defense line waited on the other side, outnumbered and outgunned, their captains bracing for the end. No one saw the human fleet coming. They did not drop out of warp with the usual flash of light and distortion. They simply appeared, silent, dark, and already in position. Their ships were unlike anything in galactic records, sleek and angular, built from black alloys that drank light instead of reflecting it. No running lights, no comm chatter, no identification codes. They moved like shadows given form. Tazrik's first warning came too late. His outer scouts vanished without a signal. Not destroyed, just gone. One moment they were there, the next empty space. He ordered a full sensor sweep. Nothing registered. His tactical officer muttered about ghosts. Tazrik laughed and called it fear. Then the sky opened. From the human ships came no missiles, no plasma beams, no boarding pods. Instead, space itself seemed to twist. Gravity wells bloomed where none should exist, yanking Korath vessels off course. Their engines flared wildly as they fought invisible tides. Before they could react, pulses of coherent dark energy, something the Concord had no name for, rippled through their formations. Shields flickered and died, not overloaded, not breached, just switched off, as if someone had unplugged them. On the bridge of the UNS Resolute, Captain Elena Ruiz watched the battle unfold on her holodisplay. She did not smile. She did not speak. She gave orders in a calm, steady voice. Her crew moved like one mind, trained for this moment for years. They were not angry. They were not excited. They were focused. Tazrik finally understood he was not fighting an enemy. He was being dismantled. His flagship, the Iron Maw, tried to retreat, but a human destroyer, no bigger than a frigate, slid into its path and fired a single shot. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a micro-singularity, contained, aimed, and released. The Iron Maw folded in on itself, crushed by forces it could not measure, vanishing in less than 3 seconds. No explosion, no debris, just absence. The rest of the fleet broke. Some tried to surrender. Others fled blindly into the void. The human ships pursued none of them. They simply erased the threat, then held position. In under 6 hours, Tazrik's armada, once the terror of the Outer Rim, ceased to exist. On Xylos, the Concord fleet waited. Hours passed. No enemy came. Then a signal appeared on their long-range scanners. Not hostile. Not friendly. Just there. A single ship drifting slowly toward them. It broadcast no message, no flag, no demand. Only when it was within visual range did the Concord realize what it was. It was human. Aboard the Resolute, Elena opened a channel. Not to the fleet. Not to the War Council. She sent a direct transmission to the Grand Spire itself, where every delegate could hear her. Her voice was clear, calm, and carried no trace of triumph. "We warned you we were leaving," she said. "You chose not to listen. Do not mistake our absence for weakness again." Then she cut the feed. The Concord ships hailed her. They begged for answers. They offered gratitude, alliance, even a permanent seat on the High Council. The Resolute did not reply. It turned, joined the rest of the human fleet, and vanished into the dark as quietly as it had come. Back on Earth, people did not celebrate. There were no parades, no victory speeches. They had not gone to war for praise. They had acted because it was necessary, and now it was done. Kalis Vorn stood alone in the observation deck of the Grand Spire, watching the empty space where the human ships had been. She felt no relief, only shame. The Council had dismissed humanity as emotional, unstable, too young to be trusted with real power. And yet when the galaxy's oldest alliance stood on the brink of collapse, it was the humans, quiet, prepared, and utterly capable, who saved them without asking for anything in return. She turned to the other delegates. "We were wrong," she said. "Not just about Earth, about everything." No one argued. In the days that followed, the Concord scrambled to understand what had happened. Their scientists studied the sensor logs, trying to make sense of the gravity distortions, the shield failures, the silent destruction. They found no answers. Human technology had leapt forward in ways they could not replicate or even comprehend. It was as if Earth had spent its time away not sulking but evolving. Meanwhile, the human fleet returned to the Sol system. As they passed Neptune, automated gates opened in the fabric of space, guiding them home. On Luna, Chloe Bennett watched their arrival on a secure feed. Project Aegis hummed softly in the background, fully active now, wrapping Earth in an invisible cocoon of defense. No one could reach them unless they allowed it. Daniel Ruiz took his daughter to the park that evening. The sky was clear. Maya pointed to a bright star and asked if that was where the bad ships had been. "That's far away," he said, "and they're gone now." "Did we win?" she asked. "We didn't fight," he said. "We just made sure no one else had to." High above, the last of the human ships docked in hidden bays beneath the ice of Europa. Their crews stepped out, tired but proud. They spoke little. They knew the galaxy would talk for years about what they had done, but they also knew the truth. Earth was no longer part of that conversation. They had stepped away, and in doing so, they had become something the galaxy could not ignore. The Concord sent another message. A formal thank you, an offer of renewed partnership. A promise of equal standing. Earth did not reply. They did not need to. Earth steps away. Galactic Council realizes too tardily. Part 5. Earth did not return to the Galactic Concord. Not then, not ever. Instead, it drew a line around itself. A quiet boundary marked not by weapons or warnings, but by simple fact. Sol system was closed. Not hostile. Not forbidden. Just closed. Ships that drifted too close found their sensors blurred. Their navigation systems gently nudged off course. Their comms filled with static that carried no message, only silence. No one was attacked. No one was threatened. But everyone understood. This was no longer a place for outsiders. The Concord tried to adapt. They sent diplomats with new offers. trade deals with better terms, shared research projects, even a proposal to rename the Defense Oversight Committee as the Earth Concord Strategic Council. All messages were received. None were answered. Earth had made its choice. It would trade when it wanted, speak when it chose, and protect itself without permission. Slowly, carefully, a new kind of contact began. Private human freighters, unmarked, unaffiliated, started appearing at neutral ports. They carried rare Earth-grown medicines, ultra-dense battery cells, and data crystals filled with non-sensitive scientific models. They accepted payment in raw materials or clean energy credits. No politics, no treaties. Just business. And always the same rule. No questions about soul, no scans. No tracking beacons. Break the rule and the freighter vanished forever. Across the galaxy, something else changed too. Schools that once taught human history as a footnote, the late-joining emotional species, rewrote their lessons. Now they studied Earth's past not as a curiosity, but as a warning. They learned how humans survived extinction-level events with nothing but grit and ingenuity, how they rebuilt after destroying themselves more than once, how they looked into the abyss and kept walking. Alien scholars pored over old human films, books, and music, searching for the secret behind their sudden leap. They found no single answer, only a pattern. Humans thrived when left alone. Kalis Vorn retired from the council. She moved to a quiet moon in the Andara system, where she wrote a book called The Quiet Strength. It became required reading for every new Concord diplomat. In it, she wrote, "We thought silence meant surrender. We were wrong. Silence was their preparation. Withdrawal was their strategy. And when they returned, it was not to join us, but to show us what we had lost by not seeing them clearly. On Earth, life went on. Cities grew upward and downward, not outward. Children learned to code before they learned to write. Farmers coaxed food from sealed biomes under artificial suns. Artists painted murals of stars they might never visit. There was no bitterness in their isolation, only peace. They had spent centuries begging for a seat at someone else's table. Now they built their own house, strong and quiet, with doors that opened only when they chose. In orbit, the Aegis grid held firm. No ship, no signal, no probe could enter Sol without human consent. Yet Earth did not hoard its knowledge. Occasionally, a data packet would appear on neutral networks, untraceable, unsigned, containing breakthroughs in fusion efficiency, atmospheric recycling, or neural interface design. Never weapons, never tactics, only tools to help others survive. The galaxy accepted them gratefully, though none knew where they came from. Most suspected, none confirmed. Captain Elena Ruiz never took another command. She returned to Mars, where she taught navigation at the Luna Mars Academy. Her students asked about the battle at Helios. She never gave details. We did what... She brought this to the security committee. They laughed. You think humans are building a secret fleet in the Kuiper Belt? One delegate asked. With what? Scrap metal and hope? Kayla said nothing. She returned to her quarters and watched old human films. Not for entertainment. To understand. She saw how they told stories about standing alone, about refusing to kneel, about walking away from tables where they were not welcome. She began to suspect that Earth had not left in anger. They had left to prepare. Meanwhile, on Luna, Chloe Bennett stood inside a cavern carved deep beneath the Sea of Tranquility. Around her, engineers in gray jumpsuits moved with quiet urgency. Wires snaked across the floor. Holographic displays showed rotating schematics of something called Project Aegis. It was not a weapon, not exactly. It was a shield, a planetary defense grid powered by quantum entanglement nodes and phased energy reflectors. No alien species had ever conceived of such a thing, because none of them had ever needed to protect a single world with such absolute finality. Humans had. They remembered bombs falling from the sky. They remembered cities burning. They would not let it happen again, not from within and certainly not from above. Chloe checked the calibration on the central core. The system was 92% ready. When it went live, it would render Earth invisible to hostile scans and untouchable by kinetic strikes. It would not fire back. It would simply make attack pointless. That was the human way now, not to fight, but to remove the reason to be fought. Back on Earth, life continued as if nothing had changed. Children went to school. Farmers harvested algae vats in vertical farms. Artists painted murals on recycled polymer walls. But beneath the surface, everything had shifted. Universities no longer taught conquered standard astrophysics. They taught human-developed models that ignored alien assumptions. Factories no longer produced parts compatible with galactic docking clamps. They made new ones, stronger, simpler, meant only for human hands. Even the language was changing. Less borrowing from galactic lingua franca. More revival of old Earth dialects, old songs, old ways of thinking that did not need translation. The Council still did not understand. They sent a low-priority diplomatic ping to Earth's old embassy frequency. No reply. They assumed the comms were down. They did not consider that Earth had chosen not to answer. Then came the first real test, a Zenthi science vessel. Mapping gravitational anomalies near Pluto, drifted too close to a region marked only as decommissioned human mining zone on old charts. Without warning, its sensors went blind. Its engines stalled. For 3 hours it floated in silence. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal. The ship's captain reported the incident baffled. The Concord dismissed it as a local magnetic disturbance, but Kalis knew better. Magnetic fields did not selectively disable alien tech while leaving human-made debris untouched. Someone was watching. Someone was guarding. She tried one last time to warn the Council. Earth is not gone, she said during a closed session. They are becoming something else, something we do not recognize. The Korath delegate yawned. Let them become whatever they like. As long as they stay in their little system, they are no threat. Kalis looked at the star map on the wall. Sol glowed faintly in the corner, small and unimportant. But she saw it differently now. Not as a fading ember, but as a seed. On Earth, Daniel Ruiz stood on a hill outside Denver. The night sky was clear. He pointed out constellations to his daughter Maya. She asked if they would ever visit the stars again. Maybe, he said, but only when we're ready, not when they say we can. Above them, unseen, a new satellite powered up. It did not broadcast. It did not blink. It simply existed, watching the dark between the stars, waiting for the moment the galaxy would finally understand what it had lost. And still, the Council did not notice. Earth steps away. Galactic Council realizes too tardily. Part 3. The attack came without warning. One moment, Helios Prime was a quiet mining colony on the edge of conquered space, home to 60,000 souls from a dozen species. The next, it was burning. Tazrik the Unbound had been a problem for years, a Korath warlord who rejected the Concord's peace treaties, gathered outcasts and mercenaries, and carved his name into the void with fire. But he had always stayed in the fringe systems, raiding supply lines, sacking forgotten outposts. No one thought he would dare strike a major colony. They were wrong. His fleet dropped out of warp in a storm of ionized gas and shattered the orbital defenses in under 20 minutes. Ground troops followed, clad in black armor, their weapons set to kill, not capture. They showed no mercy. They took no prisoners. By the time the first distress call reached the conquered capital, half the colony was ash panic spread through the council chambers. Delegates shouted over each other. Emergency protocols activated. Fleet Command scrambled every available ship within 3 sectors. But the Concord Navy was stretched thin, patrolling trade routes, monitoring disputed borders, keeping peace between old enemies. They could not gather enough force in time to stop Tazrik from moving on his next target, and everyone knew what that target would be. Xylos, the heart of the conquered, home to the Grand Spire, the data archives, the nurseries of 100 species. If Tazrik reached it, the alliance would shatter. In desperation, the Council did something they had not done in months. They sent a message to Earth. It was not a demand, not even a request. It was a plea, drafted by Kalis Vorn herself. It cited humanity's record of tactical brilliance during the border skirmishes of 28, their rapid deployment doctrine, their uncanny ability to outthink larger forces. It asked, begged for aid, for ships, for soldiers, for anything. The message was sent on every known human frequency. It bounced off old relay points. It pinged abandoned embassies. It even reached the edge of Sol system, where automated buoys still listened just in case. No reply came. Days passed. Tazrik's fleet regrouped near the Helios debris field. Scouts reported he was repairing his ships, loading stolen supplies, preparing for a long jump toward the inner conquered worlds. Fear turned to dread. Some delegates began evacuating their families. Others argued over who should lead the final defense. The unity that had held the Concorde together for centuries began to crack. Then, a new report arrived. From a civilian freighter fleeing the Helios system, the captain claimed that as Tazric's ships moved to warp, something strange happened. All human-made early warning satellites in the sector, long thought dead, had briefly lit up. Not to send data, not to alert anyone. Just for a second, they pulsed with a soft blue light, then went dark again. The freighter's sensors recorded it. No one understood why. Kalis did. She realized then that humanity had not just left the network, they had taken it with them. Every shared algorithm, every cooperative defense protocol, every line of code that once linked human systems to the Concords, gone, rewritten, locked behind firewalls no alien mind could breach. Earth had not only walked away, they had erased the path behind them. The full weight of their mistake crashed down on the Council. They had assumed humans needed them. They never considered that the Concorde needed humans more. With no help coming, the remaining Concorde fleet gathered near the Xylos jump point. It was a ragged force. Damaged cruisers, half-trained crews, ships that had not seen battle in decades. They knew they would lose, but they would not run. Back on Earth, no alarm sounded. No war councils met in public. But deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a bunker lined with ice and steel, a small group of officers watched the same reports the Council did. Among them was Captain Elena Ruiz, Daniel's older sister. She had spent the last year overseeing the final tests of the new fleet. She knew what Tazric was. She also knew what the Concorde had become. Slow, proud, blind to its own weakness. She turned to her executive officer, a quiet man named Paul Dawson. "Are we ready?" He nodded. "All ships report green. Aegis is holding. The gate is stable." Elena looked at the star map on the wall. It showed Tazric's projected path. It also showed a route no one else knew existed. A fold in space-time mapped by human mathematicians, hidden behind gravitational noise. Usable only by ships with human-made drives. "We don't owe them anything," Paul said softly. "No," Elena replied, "but we owe the people on Xylos a chance." She gave the order. Not to save the Concorde, not to prove a point, but because it was right. Far beyond the Kuiper Belt, hidden in the shadow of a dwarf planet, a massive structure hummed to life. It was not a shipyard, it was a gate. And through it, one by one, the new human fleet began to move. They did not broadcast their approach. They did not hail anyone. They simply appeared on the edge of the Helios system, silent and dark, as Tazric's fleet prepared to jump. The warlord's sensors detected nothing. His scouts saw no threat. To them, space was empty, but it wasn't. On Earth, Daniel Ruiz held his daughter close as news of the attack spread through public channels. "Maya asked if the bad men would come here." "No," he said, "not while we're watching." And high above, in the cold dark between stars, humanity's quiet fleet waited. Not for glory, not for thanks, just for the right moment to act. The galaxy still did not understand, but it would soon. Earth steps away, Galactic Council realizes too tardily. Part 4. Earth steps away, Galactic Council realizes too tardily. Part 1. The chamber of the Galactic Concorde was vast, built to hold the voices of 200 species. Its walls shimmered with living crystal that pulsed gently in response to emotion, and the air hummed with translation fields that turned every word into something every delegate could understand. On this day, the usual noise of debate had quieted. All eyes, some with pupils, some without, were fixed on a single figure standing at the center of the speaker's ring. He was human. His name was Daniel Ruiz. Daniel wore a simple gray suit, no medals, no insignia. He looked tired but calm. He did not raise his voice. He did not gesture dramatically. He simply spoke. "Effective immediately," he said. "Earth and all its associated colonies formally withdraw from the Galactic Concorde." A ripple passed through the chamber. Not shock, not outrage. More like mild surprise, the kind one might feel when a neighbor stops watering their plants. The Velnari delegate, Kalis Vorn, tilted her feathered head slightly. The Korath ambassador shifted his armored bulk but said nothing. A few Zentai exchanged soft chimes through their internal resonance chambers. To them, this was not a crisis. It was a nuisance. Humans had always been difficult, passionate, impulsive. They joined the Conquered only 83 standard years ago, latecomers to the galactic stage, yet they had pushed hard for influence. They asked for voting rights on security matters. They demanded representation on the Resource Allocation Tribunal. They argued endlessly about ethics, fairness, and human rights, concepts many older species considered charmingly naive. And just last cycle, the Council had denied Earth's request for a permanent seat on the Defense Oversight Committee, citing their emotional instability in high-stakes scenarios. The humans had been quiet since then. Now this, Daniel continued. We will dismantle our embassies within 30 days. All data-sharing agreements are terminated. Our scientific observers will be recalled. Our trade vessels will no longer dock at Conquered-controlled ports unless under private contract. We ask only that you respect our sovereignty and refrain from entering Sol system without explicit permission. He paused. No one interrupted. No one asked why. They assumed it was pride, a tantrum, a temporary retreat until cooler heads, human or otherwise, prevailed. Thank you for your time, Daniel said, and stepped down. Back on Earth, no sirens wailed. No emergency broadcasts interrupted entertainment streams. The withdrawal had been decided months ago, in quiet rooms beneath Geneva, in encrypted channels between Luna and Mars, in whispered conversations between engineers, diplomats, and soldiers who had watched their pleas for equality be met with polite condescension for decades. They had tried to play by the rules. Now they would write their own. Across the Sol system, the work began. On Mars, technicians powered down the Conquered compliant communication arrays and replaced them with older human-designed systems that didn't leak data through backdoor protocols. In the asteroid belt, mining stations quietly severed their network links to the galactic trade grid. On Titan, scientists packed up their shared research logs and wiped every trace of alien-accessible metadata from their servers. It was not rebellion. It was cleanup. Daniel returned to his small apartment in New Seattle. Rain tapped against the window. He poured a cup of coffee, real coffee, not the reconstituted kind they served on space stations, and sat by the window. His daughter Maya was drawing at the table, her small hands smudging charcoal across recycled paper. She didn't ask about his day. She knew better than to ask when his eyes were distant. Out in orbit, the last human ambassadorial shuttle undocked from the Concord liaison station near Jupiter. Its pilot, a woman named Chloe Bennett, sent one final signal before engaging the drive. All personnel accounted for. Station handed over per protocol. Then she turned the ship toward home and said nothing else. The Galactic Council did not hold an emergency session. They filed Daniel's announcement under administrative updates and moved on to the next item. A dispute between the Korath and the Zenthai over helium-3 mining rights in the Proxima Drift. Earth's absence was noted, then forgotten, but not everywhere. Deep in the Oort cloud, far beyond the reach of casual scans, a construction platform the size of a small moon hummed with activity. Robots welded hull plates made of layered neutronium-infused alloys. Energy conduits glowing faintly blue snaked through skeletal frameworks that would one day become ships unlike any the galaxy had seen. No alien design had inspired them. No Conquered standard had shaped them. They were born from human minds that had finally stopped asking for a seat at the table and started building their own. On Earth, schools still taught history. Children still played in parks. Farmers still coaxed crops from soil under artificial suns. But something had changed. The invisible threads that tied humanity to the rest of the galaxy were being cut, one by one, with surgical precision. There was no anger in it, only resolve. The Council assumed humans would return within a year. They always did. They needed galactic markets. They needed alliance protection. They needed validation. What the Council did not understand was that humanity had realized something. They never needed any of it. They had survived ice ages, world wars, plagues, and nuclear winters. They had walked on their moon before they even knew other stars had planets. They had built civilizations from mud and fire. The galaxy thought them young, loud, and fragile, but youth carries hunger, loudness carries warning, and fragility is often mistaken for patience. Daniel watched his daughter finish her drawing. It was a ship, but not like the sleek Conquered cruisers. This one had sharp angles, heavy armor, and no windows. What's it called? He asked. The Quiet One, Maya said. He smiled. Good name. Far above, in silent orbits, the first of Earth's new defense satellites powered up. They did not broadcast their presence. They did not ping for identification. They simply watched and waited. The Galactic Council would not notice any of this. Not yet. They were too busy debating mining rights, recalibrating trade tariffs, and dismissing human withdrawal as a temporary lapse in judgment. They believed time would bring Earth crawling back, hat in hand, ready to rejoin the civilized order. They were wrong, but they would not know it until it was far too late. Earth steps away. Galactic Council realizes too tardily. Part 2 months passed. The galaxy turned. Stars burned. Ships crossed the void. And Earth stayed silent. At first, the Galactic Concord barely noticed. Human trade ships had always been a small fraction of interstellar commerce. Human diplomats had often been sidelined in major decisions. Their absence left a quiet space, easily filled by the endless chatter of older species. The Council moved on. They assumed Earth would return when they ran out of rare isotopes or needed help with asteroid deflection. It was only a matter of time, but time kept going, and Earth did not come back. The first real sign that something was wrong came from the Perseus arm. A freighter captain named Jorlin Vex, a Korath independent trader, reported that the human relay station near the Cygnus Rift was dark. No signal, no response, not even an automated beacon. He tried hailing it 3 times over 2 weeks. Nothing. He filed a routine anomaly report with Concord Traffic Control. It was logged, categorized as low priority, and forgotten. Then another report came. And another. Human observation posts along the outer rim stopped transmitting. Scientific buoys that once shared stellar weather data with the entire quadrant went offline. At first, the Council thought it was a system-wide malfunction. Maybe a solar flare, maybe a software glitch. But when their own probes approached Sol's system to investigate, they found something strange. Every human-made satellite in near-Earth orbit had been deactivated. Not destroyed, not damaged, just turned off, like someone had flipped a switch and walked away. Kalis Vorn, the Velnari delegate, began to worry. She had always respected humans, even when others called them reckless. She remembered how quickly they had adapted to zero-gravity medicine, how they rebuilt their Mars colonies after the dust storms of '39, how they argued for mercy during the Zenthai civil conflict, when every other species wanted to let them tear each other apart. Humans were emotional, yes, but they were also stubborn. And silence was not their nature. She requested a formal inquiry. The Council denied it. "Let them sulk," said the Korath representative. "They'll be back when their children start asking why they can't watch galactic holodramas anymore." But Kalis did not give up. In secret, she used her personal clearance to access deep-range scans from the Concord's long-eye telescopes. What she saw confused her. Earth's orbital shipyards, the massive rings that once built freighters and research vessels, were empty. No construction, no movement. Yet near the edge of the solar system, beyond Neptune, energy readings flickered. Tiny pulses, irregular, not natural, not random. They looked like power surges from something very large, very far away and very well hidden.